All right, so topic of the day, people. A lot of you probably read my title. A lot of you probably tuned in to be a part of this discussion. And yeah, so first of all, hello YouTube. How are you guys doing today? Today we're going to be talking about something that is going to be a little bit controversial. Maybe very controversial depending on who stumbles across this video or this discussion and wants to, subtweet me or whatever. But I've been sitting and thinking for a while about will Rollback really fix this game? And so it's important to note that in no way am I saying that Rollback won't help the game. Obviously, better netcode is better for pretty much everyone. Like no one suffers from the game having better netcode. Everyone wants better netcode for this game. Everyone wants better netcode for every game. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying they shouldn't put Rollback into the game. Like that would be very foolish. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I think that even with Rollback in the game, there are going to be some issues with the game that have existed for a while that will not change even with better netcode. And in some cases, some of these issues might actually get worse. And so I don't know how I'm gonna attack this. This might be like I think it's probably gonna be multiple videos because I feel like this conversation could get pretty long-winded, especially because I just know how I explain things to people. But I have a few different modules, I guess you would call them, that I kind of want to just kind of talk to you guys about. And of course, if you're in chat, I'm gonna actually you guys will be able to see my Twitch chat during this discussion, so it won't be me speaking into the void. You guys will actually get to see people in chat engage with me if they choose to. Some of them might just sit there and listen to me talk, but okay. So I have grievances. And if you've watched me for any amount of time, you would know that I have grievances. No game is perfect, especially fighting games. They're all flawed in some way. However, I think for this game, it feels worse because it feels like the game has only changed for the worse in a lot of ways in terms of its system as time has gone on. And it sucks because at one point, I was very passionate, right? I was very passionate about this game. I was competing. I was literally taking a train to the Bronx every fucking week to play this game. You know how serious and how into the game you have to be to go to the fucking Bronx every week? Come on, bro. That's it's pretty crazy, right? That's commitment. It's commitment. And so what are the problems fundamentally that I have, right? And instead of just kind of throwing things to you guys in passing, I want to actually talk to you guys exactly. I'm going to explain to you exactly what I mean when I say certain things. And that's why I think this is going to have to be multiple videos, because there's just a lot. And I actually have some surprises for you guys with this as well. So I think you guys will really enjoy this. So first thing I want to talk about, risk reward, right? This is arguably the biggest issue. When we get past all the modules, you will notice that some of them are definitely bigger than others. I definitely think that this is one of the biggest, is risk reward. I think as time has gone on, Dragon Ball FighterZ is a game that has really warped the concept of risk reward as time has gone on. And so in some cases, they've made changes for the better, right? At one point, who could forget when Yamcha and Base Vegeta, right, could EX you and they had no recovery, right? They had no recovery, and those are lariat style moves. In Base Vegeta's case, it was frame 4 invulnerable, and so his risk reward for pressing a move was just not very high. You just press it and kind of see what happens. It's whatever, right? And so in those cases, they nerf those characters to assess the risk reward. So now you still get the same damage, right? But now they're very much more punishable, right? They're way more punishable. So I can show you guys Yamcha EX. Right? Now, look at how long this is. This is very long recovery. Still recovering. Still recovering. So we're already at minus 38 right now. It's going to reset because lab code's going to touch the ground. And that's kind of the way it reads recovery. It's like, okay, now we're minus 40. Okay. It resets. So she hits the ground and jumps again, and he's still minus 7. So think about that, right? He's still minus 7 after she lands and jumps again, right? This is very long recovery, right? And I would argue, some people would be like, oh, you should buff Yamcha, right? You should buff Yamcha because it's unfair that he suffers this recovery whenever he presses this move. I'm actually here to argue the opposite, right? I think that's going the wrong way. And I see this a lot when people have conversations about this game, is they believe that instead of toning down moves that have really fucked up risk reward, they should buff more characters to have silly risk reward, which is like weird, right? It's really weird. We'll get into EX moves in just a bit, but first I want to talk about damage, right? As time has gone on, damage in this game has only gone up for a multitude of reasons. When EX moves became more prevalent, right? Obviously damage goes up because most EX moves are unskilled starters, or they have less scaling than your average like run up, button. They're more damage than like L starters generally. There are exceptions to that rule, of course, but since they're more damage than L starters, and L starters are the most common starters in the game, damage goes up because the higher damage starters are becoming more common. That should be easy to understand. There are also other things that lead to damage being extremely high. Special tag is one of those things. Because now, instead of like having to do a very specific or very optimized combo, like a lot of characters can just end with special tag DR, which gives you the knockdown. It gives you the damage closeout, right? Like there's just like, it's more consistent, right? Consistency is a good thing. But I do think that damage in the game as a whole is a little too high. And this is also the case with other games, with other fighting games. Like Guilty Gear Strive is a game where I feel like damage is too high, right? Why do I feel like damage is too high? Well, the more damage you have, thank you for the follow. The more damage that you have, the less the less like meaningful interactions you and your opponent have, right? And there's like a sweet spot that you reach where like damage is perfect and it promotes the amount of interactions between you and your opponent that it feels rewarding and also sensible. Dragon Ball FighterZ, in my opinion, damage has gone kind of past the point of no return, where at one point hitting 5k damage was like a big deal. Like if you go back and you look to older patches, older versions of the game, at one point like people would see characters do 5k in a combo off of an M starter and be like, oh shit bro, that was so much damage, holy fucking shit, did you see that? He fucking got nuked, right? Now 50% is like nothing. Like it's not nothing, but like there are characters that are doing far more than 5k, right? And part of that obviously is like them also buffing level 3 damage, which I think was like a good change at the time. Like for those of you who don't know, the transition to season 1 to season 2, they buffed super damage by like 200. They buffed level 3 damage by like 200, like pretty much across the board. They added 200 damage to like each super, and so like that was really good because at the time combos were not very long, or they weren't very damaging. There were obviously some exceptions on certain starters or certain very, very niche situations, but generally damage was way lower, and so like that change was very good then. But now damage is really high, and they only and as time goes on, right, as they release characters, as they continue to release characters and put characters into the game and make changes to characters, right, damage going up is something that has pretty much universally been the case because characters get better routes, right? They've added more combo routes to a lot of characters. some supers they buff directly, like SSJ Goku, right? They buffed his level 1s. As they release characters into the game, they give them high super damage on purpose so that they can compete, right? Like Lab Coat does 1821 damage on her level 3. That's obscenely high. Like that's like absurd, right? That's like an absurd amount of damage for a level 3, right? Considering that the average level 3 damage at one point was 1700, right? I don't know what it is now. I think it's still, it might be, it's probably a little higher than 1700 at this point for the characters that are like actually being played. But yeah, 1800 damage on a level 3, and like you gotta keep in mind, like before, to get 1800 damage on a level 3, like, you know, that was like stuff left to only like Tien. Like Tien could do that, but he had to sacrifice life, and he was also dog shit at the time. Like he was not that good, and so like that's what I mean, where damage in the game has only gone up over time, and there's been nothing put in place to combat this issue, right? There's nothing in Dragon Ball FighterZ that has been put in to directly reduce the amount of damage that characters do off of a hit. There are issues with this, right? Because there's no real good way to fix it, and it's what leads so many people it would lead so many people to think that Dragon Ball is a game that offense is unequivocally what rules the game. Like if you go and you ask casuals, I don't know if you guys saw the poll that I did recently, but I did a poll where I asked people, how do you feel about the balance between offense and defense on a bunch of different fighting games? I posted this poll in Reddit as well, and you know, one of the comments, I'll actually show you guys. I'll show you guys the comment because I think you guys will find it really funny. So let me pull it up here. Give me 1 second. I appreciate you. All right, look. This is what it says. Most upvoted comment on the thread, by the way. People are saying that DBFZ is too defensive. What? If blocking is an option, then it's too defensive. Duh. And obviously he's being sarcastic. This is really funny to me, right? This is really funny to me because I think if you have played Dragon Ball FighterZ competitively for a while, it has been too defensive. It absolutely has been. I think Dragon Ball has been a game where defensive options have ruled the game for 3 to 4 years at this point, right? It's only now I think that you can even call this into question. Because some would argue that, you know, the multitude of defensive options are balanced out by the fact that you die on every hit, right? A lot of hits you just kind of die for. And so I think that it is possible for both offense and defense to be too strong at once. That might be kind of a weird concept to wrap heads around, but I do think that we're kind of in a point where damage is definitely too high, and so maybe they put damage so high is like a response, like they're like, oh, you know, the defensive options are really strong, so we're just gonna make it so you die on every hit. I don't think that this is rewarding, and I don't think that this promotes this promotes like meaningful interactions in the way that they were hoping to. All it really does is make it a game of kind of a game of YOLO, right? And that's like what this module is about risk reward. Is about like what happens when you press a strong option in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Okay, where do we go from here? So moving on from damage, right? Let's talk about everyone's favorite things, right? Long normals, EX moves, right? Two things that pretty much universally are taken as negatives in the game. I haven't seen many people say that it's actually good that normals go this far. It's actually good that EX moves are this egregious. So let's talk about EX moves first. Okay. EX moves, once upon a time, they were a full bar, right? They used to cost a full bar. But honestly, that's not even the biggest issue, right? The biggest issue is that now in Dragon Ball FighterZ, not only do EX moves cost half a bar, which was the change in Season 3. At the beginning of Season 3, they made it so all EX moves cost half a bar. But there's no meter penalty on EX moves anymore. So, I don't know if I'm gonna put a video of a previous set. If I was gonna put a video of a previous set from, you know, older Dragon Ball on the screen at this point, but how it used to work was if you started a combo with an EX move, what would happen is that your meter got locked out for the rest of the combo because it was an EX starter. So you would get severely reduced meter gain for the rest of the combo because you used an EX as your starter. That's not the way it works anymore. Now it's time-based. And so, like, even though people are starting combos with EX moves, they're still very much able to build a lot of meter during combos. If you've ever been EX DP'd by Blue Gogeta, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He spends half a bar to EX DP you, but he gains more than that on the combo afterwards. So it's a net positive off of an invulnerable move, right? This is part of the problem. This is a big part of the problem. Now, I think another big part of the problem is that EX moves just do a lot of damage in general. Like, they fucking hurt, right? Like, it's painful. Like, how many times have you guys been hit by this shit? Right? This is not like a small hit. Right? This is not a small damage. This is not a small damaging combo. Like, you're gonna fucking explode, right? You can see you're taking 2k before I even do anything. This is me pressing EX and a run up 5M. You've taken 2k already. This is not even with the extensions, with this and that, right? It's no assist involved. You just take a lot of damage. And so the problem with EX moves being this potent is that it severely affects the risk reward of the game, to where a lot of people want to just press EXs, and like you can't really tell them not to, right? You can't tell them not to press the EX because they are extremely strong. Like, it is just how it is. Like, how many times have you guys honestly punished a raw EX with from Labco? How many times? This EX, obviously this one is probably a little bit easier to punish, but how many times have you done this in a game where you get an actual straight up punish on an EX Lariat, right? Not only from Labco, but from like your Gogeta Forest, from your characters that are being picked off in, right? And so that's what I mean by risk reward. These moves are hard to punish. They are. And even if you do get a punish, it's not even you get the max damage punish. So let me talk about this. In a world where moves are this strong, is it insane? Is it insane to think that, like, if you press this move and you whiff or it's blocked, an overwhelming majority of the time, not only should it be a punish, but it should be a hard punish, right? In my eyes, if you're pressing a move that does this much all at once, because EX moves also just have way too many properties at once. They've stuffed so many properties onto singular moves that it's like insane, right? Like, think about this move, right? Think about this move. What does this move have to it? It is 3 major properties that make it completely nonsense, right? It is a frame 1 air invulnerable move. It's a Ki Blast invulnerable move, and it also low crushes. And low crushes extremely early. That's 3 properties already. We're not even going to talk about the fact that it also hits both sides. So it's anti-guard cancel, anti-GC vanish, right? Anti-vanish in general. It's a lot of properties on one move, right? And for a move that does that much all at once, you would think that getting a 5M, like, that's what it should be, right? You whiff this move, you block this move, you take big damage, right? That's not the case, right? Punishing this move, right? Most of the time when you punish this move, it's a JL. Some characters can 2H if she does it off the ground, right? But if she's like this high, you're not 2Hing unless you're Gogeta. Unless you're Gogeta. then it's different. Right? But that's like one character. It's like one character, right? And so like an overwhelming majority of characters cannot punish this to the extent that it should be for a move that does so many things at once. That is the dynamic of EX moves that I think have created a very unhealthy risk reward in Dragon Ball FighterZ. There are moves that have insane amount of properties, but they are hard to punish. In this case, right? This is safe on block. Why is this move safe on block, right? Look at the speed. Look at the distance. Look at the properties. This move goes very far. It goes through all assists and projectiles, even supers, but it's -4. Why is it -4? That doesn't make sense, right? This doesn't make sense for a move to have all of this at once. Right, that has been a trend that they've gone towards, like as time has gone on, to answer the fact that some EX moves are insane, because there have been EX moves that have been absurd from the jump, right? On release, right, EX legs from both Gohans were obscene, right? Obscene, crazy, right? Insane. But instead of saying, oh, we're going to directly address the problem, right? Whereas like if people complain about an EX move, sometimes they get nerfed. Like the Gohans did get their EX moves nerfed, right? Instead, what they've done is they've buffed other characters' EXs to be egregious. That's going in the wrong direction, right? In my eyes, that's going in the incorrect direction. Let's talk about characters that are not top tier, right? Have you guys ever seen this move? You ever seen this? For those of you who don't know, this is 22H from Roshi. Did you know that this is one of the most nonsense moves in the game altogether? Did you know that? Because it is. Why is that the case? Okay, well, first of all, it's 8 frames. Extremely fast move. There are not many characters in the game that have 8-frame special moves in general. To my knowledge, like off the top of my head, like Bardock has a 6-frame special. He also has an 8-frame special on M Lariat. I don't know about many other characters that have special moves that are this fast. Okay, but that's just one thing, right? If you look at the invincibility, it says invincibility low attack. Yeah, so this is a low crush. It is invulnerable to lows altogether. You cannot press a low on this move. And so if you knock him down and you go for Oki and you start with a low and he presses this, you just got hit. And that hit that you take, it doesn't tickle. This is a high damage starter EX. The highest damage starter. He gets a solo combo and you get absolutely nuked. And you don't get blue life because it's an EX starter, right? And on top of that, if you didn't think that was enough, in case you didn't know, it's also air invulnerable. It's a frame 1 anti-air. It's a frame 1 anti-air. That thing that you get hit by lab coat, you know that spin move that you guys absolutely hate having to interact with, right? Yeah, Roshi's move is like that too. It's a frame 1 anti-air. It's invulnerable to air moves. Moves with head property. It's invulnerable to lows. It's 8 frame startup. This is what I mean by they've packed too many properties into one move. Roshi is not a character that is meta or a character that is too strong, right? But this move demonstrates the balance philosophy of Dragon Ball FighterZ that they've gone with EX moves, and I think it is complete nonsense. It's complete nonsense that they've just decided to stuff a ton of properties onto singular moves as a means to like buff characters. I think that's you get to the point of no return so much faster. So much faster by that way. It's not a matter of Roshi being too strong. He's not. Roshi's not that good in the game. But this move doesn't make sense from a fighting game perspective. It doesn't. And it's safe on block, by the way, again, because that's like, yeah, that's like a trend with Dragon Ball FighterZ, that special moves have to be safe on block. I don't think it has to be that way, right? That's the way that they've chosen to go about balancing moves in this game, but I don't think that's healthy. I really don't, and I think that is part of the reason that for some people the game feels so bad to play right now, right? Because the risk reward associated with pressing EX moves, we're talking about moves that have 2 or 3 properties on them at once, that give solo combos that nuke your character, that are extremely hard to punish or nigh impossible to punish, right? In a lot of situations where people build out their fighting game flowcharts, where my opponent is doing X option, I'm going to choose this option to deal with it, right? That's like how we like to envision fighting games. Oh, I know the answer to this. I have to press this specific option to deal with it. What ends up happening is that one move answers so many outputs at once, so many inputs, right? It answers so many things at once that in a lot of cases, the right answer is to just press the EX move, right? That's a problem. That's a problem, because not only is there a really fucked up risk reward with it, but it also makes certain moves like kind of useless, right? There are some characters that will never press the other version of their moves. there are some characters that'll never press, you know, the L version of their move or the M version of their move, because like, why would I do that when I have the EX that does more damage, most of the time goes further, it has better properties on it, or it has invulnerability earlier, right? It leads to that flow chart of what do I need to do in response being very pigeonholed. Like it just limits it. Like, yeah, you should just press. Like, that's why a lot of the time whenever I do analysis for people nowadays, right, it used to be, you know, maybe you should consider not, you know, pressing the move as much because you're getting punished for pressing that move. That doesn't happen that much anymore, because like, yeah, there is such a thing as pressing a bad EX, but the punishment that you get for pressing a bad EX is not nearly as much as you will get for hitting them with this EX, right? This EX happens and you hit them, you might just win the game on that situation outright. Whereas like me taking a JL punish on this bullshit, right? Like, you're not gonna take that much damage. And so especially when your character is at a healthy amount of health, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can just YOLO, and there's not that much huge punishment to come as a result of it, right? And so like, that's an issue. And so I actually have statements, guys. I have statements. I went out of my way and I reached out to some players that you guys may or may not know. And these are players that we have lost. These are players that we have lost. These are players that used to have Dragon Ball FighterZ as their main game, and they no longer have it as their main game for one reason or another. And some of them will pop up in future modules, but we actually have 3 statements for this module. But only one of them for EX moves. And this one comes from Dekillsage. My question to him was, what was the #1 thing that made you stop playing or competing in Dragon Ball FighterZ? Completely open-ended, but I thought it'd be interesting to get some perspectives of people who moved on to other games. Dekillsage's answer was very simple, very, very, very short and sweet, which is like very fitting of his character. He said, and I quote, EX moves changing to half a bar and removing the forced meter build scaling on them. That was the #1 issue that made Dekillsage stop playing Dragon Ball FighterZ, stop competing in Dragon Ball FighterZ. His opinion is not the only one that matters, right? It's not, by any means. Everyone can have a take on, is it good for the game, is it bad for the game, right? But this is something that you'll see expressed quite a lot to people. This is a point of negativity for overwhelming majority of players, even players that love the game, right? There's a lot of people that love this game a lot. They want to play it no matter what. They want to see the game grow and succeed, right? They want to like the game for one reason or another. Maybe they just like Dragon Ball, maybe they just really fell in love with the game, right? I could maybe count on one hand the amount of times that someone has said, yeah, the way EX moves are right now in the game is actually good for it. And I do a lot of talking about this game. You guys know me. I boot up this shit every day. I boot up the stream involving this game like pretty much every day, right? I talk to a lot of people, gotten a lot of takes. I've talked to people in person, I've talked to people in chats, I've talked to people in DMs. Very few times have I seen someone say, yeah, no, the way EX moves is actually okay. It's actually okay. There have been conversations about how would you go about fixing the issue, but pretty much universally agreed upon that it is a problem, right? And this severely impacts the risk reward of Dragon Ball FighterZ. This is a problem. This is a problem. This is something that Rollback will not fix, right? That is the overarching sentiment of this entire video series. This is something that Rollback will not fix. This is something that can only be fixed if the dev goes in and they fix it, right? And they actually change the system itself, because changing one move or another, right? I don't care if you nerf this, cool, right? If you nerf this, some people will be happy. Some people will be happy and they will be satisfied with that. But me as a player, like if I want to be someone that wants to compete, right? I'm not satisfied with justice being changed, because everyone else still has theirs too, right? There's still other characters that have really fucked up risk reward on pressing these EX moves. And so you have to change the system as a whole, I think. You have to remove properties from a lot of moves. You have to reintroduce meter penalty. You have to give it a severe damage penalty, something. It is insane that these moves have all of this at once in terms of EX moves. But that's not all. That's not all. Oh my God, you thought I was done? No, I'm not done. Let's go to character select, guys. Let's take a trip. Let's take a trip, because another thing that it severely affects Dragon Ball FighterZ risk reward. You guys know where I'm going with this? I hope you guys know where I'm going with this. Let's see. Who do I want to choose for this? Oof. There's so many. Oh, this guy. This guy. Yeah. No, definitely that. Oh, this guy. Let's see. Who else? Who else? We could really, I could pick like pretty much anyone. Oh, you know what? This guy. So it would be one thing. It would be one thing if EX moves were the only thing that were fucking up the risk reward. In fact, if it was only EX moves, it might be tolerable, maybe. It probably would still be pretty awful, to be honest. But it might be tolerable if it was just EX moves, but it's not. It's not just EX moves, right? It's also normals. Normals that function as specials. So Bardock changed this game's face for eternity. Bardock introduced it to the game. He gave us the Lariat. And ever since Bardock has been in the game, they have been making changes to bring characters in line with Bardock, or make Bardock, or make them have something that Bardock has but better, right? And so in season 3.5, what did they start doing? They started buffing normals to go extremely far, right? We all know about this, right? And it used to be better. It used to be better, right? This is obscene, right? This is crazy, right? There's a lot of fighting games that have very long normals, but this is an extremely long way. It's essentially Lariat on a button, right? That's what I like to think about it as. The Lariat on a button, right? It's very hard to punish, even after the nerf, right? It used to be more egregious, but it's very hard to punish. And on one hand, where EX moves, if you press an EX move and it's blocked, most of the time you're going to be minus, right? It might not be minus enough, like we saw Gogeta 4's Lariat is -4, right? I don't think that's enough. Labco anti-air spin is like -4 or -5, right? That's not enough. Okay, your string doesn't end here if you send it, right? So if I run up and I 5M you with Vegito, right? It's not like I have to 5M and stop. In fact, I don't have to at all. I could just run up and 5M and just keep pressing M. And if I make contact with you, I just get a string. Or in some cases, I get a mix, depending on the character, right? I straight up get a mix up. And so now, special moves are on buttons. And so like this also affects the risk reward. Because where's the risk? The risk is even less, right? The risk is even less on moves like this because on whiff, they're already hard to punish, as I talked about before. I get a string on hit or on block. And even if I do whiff, I still have options to get away if I really wanted to, right? This is insane. It's not just his character, right? This shit is also really far, right? It's not as far as Vegito. This shit is really far, and his is safe on block, right? This shit. What is this? What is this? You guys know what this is? It's the fucking lariat. That's what this is. It's a lariat on a button. That's what it is. It's like, that's what this is. This is so insane, right? This is crazy. There are a lot of characters that have buttons like this. It used to be, right? Characters like Kid Buu, right? He's always had really long normals, right? But look at what happens when Kid Buu presses 5M. You see how long that is? You see how long the recovery is on a whiff 5M? Right? He has the stomps too. Right? Look how minus they are on whiff. Right? Right? And they also have a dead zone. Obviously. Because like I can't 3M you here. Just whiff. Right? So I have to choose the right stomp at the right time. I can't even 2M here. I have to 1M, right? It's not the case for a lot of the characters that they buffed, right? This shit. What is this? What is this shit? Why? Why? And I cannot stress enough, right? The risk reward associated with Zem pressing 5M, right? A move that is, yeah, it's -7. If you do it point blank, but you don't have to stop, right? You don't have to stop here. I can go into a string. I can space this to make this safe. This is -5, right? Right? And this is an 8-frame move. That's faster than most lariats. The only lariat that's faster than this is Bardock EX Lariat. It's the only lariat that's faster, to my knowledge. There might be like some random character that I'm missing, right? Okay. What about this guy? This shit? This is really far. Now his is not as egregious, I don't think, because it is a bit slower. Obviously, like, you know, it's 12 frames. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, it takes some travel time to get there. But due to the nature of the game, which, you know, some of it has to do with how strong assists are. We'll get to that in a later module. But there are a lot of situations where people will just send this. Even the strong players. Have you guys watched Inzem play? Have you guys watched Inzem play? Even against pro players, the best players on earth, sometimes he just sends this shit. Right? He just sends it. Because he knows the risk reward associated with him pressing this move is so insanely in his favor that it does not matter. It does not matter if his opponent might get a punish, right? They might like SD over top of it or something, right? But that's an SD starter as opposed to you are dead for getting hit by this. You are dead. Like, it is not a question, right? We all know this. I hope you guys in chat realize that. You are dead. It's not if he does a good combo. It's not if he does. You're dead. You're dead. There's not, you're just dead. You're just dead here, right? Does that test the skills that we're looking to test in fighting games? I just don't think it does. I don't. I don't. And that's like one of my grievances, right? Like this character, right? And the problem is that they feel like the way to fix the issue, instead of saying, okay, normals are a bit too much, EX moves are a bit too much, let's tone them all down across the board, or change the way the system works to better suit, you know, a more sustainable risk reward game, right? Instead, they just give characters the same thing, or they try to give characters the same thing. Little do they know, like, this shit, right? They gave Frieza this, right? One of the changes that they gave to Frieza is they gave him this. This is quite literally a full screen button. It is quite literally a full screen button. Now, it is not nearly as good as some of the moves that I've showed to you in the past, right? Because from full screen, yeah, it's 26 frames, still minus on block, right? All that stuff, but it still exists, right? It's still there. And this is a problem in some cases. Like, this shit hits people. It does. Should players be able to press buttons that are not specials from back here and just force things, right? I don't think that should be the case. I don't think that should be the case. This move is not that good. I really don't think his 5M is that good, but on the principle of how the game is, I just don't think things like this should exist. You should be promoting people to play within their characters' ranges, and the ranges should be reasonable. It should be reasonable. Now, effective range, you used to be able to be able to metagame that in a lot of ways, right? It used to be like, you know, the character I'm fighting against has like limited effective range, and so like I can kind of dance outside that range and whatnot, right? Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend like you still can't do that to some extent, but it's much harder, right? It's much harder. It's much harder. So I have some more testimonials for you guys in regards to normals in the current game. So this next one comes from Apologyman. Apologyman, who plays very well in Season 2 World Finals, one of the strongest players to ever play the game, has moved on to Guilty Gear Strive since. And I asked him the same thing. I asked him the same exact thing that I asked Dekillsage. I asked him, what was the #1 thing that stopped you from playing Dragon Ball FighterZ? His response: too many gigantic lariat-like normals and specials, making the neutral game much less fun, and having good movement meaning a lot less. He also followed up and said that, another thing I want to say is while the game's overall cast is the most balanced it's ever been, which is cool, that doesn't mean much to me personally when its core neutral game feels less fun to play compared to previous seasons. This is a guy, right, who heats up his cereal and milk. No, but seriously, this is an issue, right? This is a problem. They're very clearly alienating people at the top level, right? They're people that were very passionate, right? And they cared a lot about the game. And these decisions, by the way, I want to point out that both of these problems are 3.5 and later problems, right? Vanilla Season 3, before the 3.5 patch, it had half bar EX moves, but there were less of them that had so many properties, and there was still meter penalty. There was still meter penalty for the entire combo after you EX someone in Vanilla Season 3. Risk reward completely different, right? Completely different. There were some outliers. Vegeta EX kick. We're not gonna pretend like that shit was not nonsense. It was frame 4 invulnerable, gave a full combo, was safe on block, right? But that's why it was a problem. Most people that were playing at that time would tell you that base Vegeta EX kick pre-patch was complete nonsense because it was invul on startup. It gave a full combo. It was hard to punish, right? All those things, right? What did they do? They nerfed that just to give other characters even better EX moves, right? That's what they did. They nerfed him and took it away because it was egregious and people hated it. What they do, they turned around and just gave more nonsense EX moves to other characters. That doesn't make sense. Does it make sense, guys? I don't think it does. I really don't. But I'm not gonna stop there. I'm not gonna stop there because we're gonna come back to Apologyman. He actually had something extra to say on top of that, but it'll have to go in a future module. So we have a statement from Supernoon. You guys might know Supernoon, right? Right? Supernoon? Okay. What did Supernoon say? What's the number one thing that made you stop playing Dragon Ball FighterZ? His response. Pretty much the netcode, and I didn't enjoy the way that they were balancing the game as well. Seemed like neutral was becoming less important and easier with giant normals and key blasts, as well as nerfing a lot of the mix-ups out of the game. So there's like 3 or 4 things that he made note of, right? The netcode, obviously, we all know netcode's a problem, right? But the next thing he said after netcode was gigantic normals, making the neutral feel like it's less rewarding. Why does it feel less rewarding or less fun to play? It's because the risk reward is so skewed, right? Right? That's why it feels that way. It's because the risk reward is fucked up. There are more instances of people just sending it than people picking their spots, right? This is a problem. This is a problem. And so that's what I have for this module, right? The risk reward of Dragon Ball FighterZ has evolved into something that for a lot of players does not feel engaging, and it doesn't feel rewarding. And that is something that is like pretty crazy to say, given that they have made some changes to make the neutral game easier for people, right? Like they made super jumping much easier for people, right? You can just hold S to do it. They gave people more access to like movement macros, like you can do 9 plus SD to get an air dash. Like they have made movement easier for people as time has gone on. And even with all those things, it still feels to some of these players that it is not worth it. It's not worth it because they know about the fucked up risk reward that they're put into every single time they have to play the game. And so with that as the end of this module, but I do want to get some takes from you guys in chat. Like, how do you guys feel about it, right? Because I do really think that this is something that Rollback will not fix. This is something that Rollback will not fix. Each module is something that I think is a flaw that Rollback will not fix, right? This is not something that Rollback will fix. You will only be EXing in better conditions. That's it.